Welcome to Taste China Learn English. So imagine a building material that is so incredibly strong and so exceptionally durable that ancient Chinese emperors actually mixed it into the mortar to build the Great Wall of China.
Right, yeah, it held those massive stone blocks together for centuries. And I think the most surprising part is that you can actually eat it.
Exactly. I mean, you can eat it,
Yeah.
and not just any food. Today, we are taking a special deep dive into some really fascinating notes on Chinese food culture.
We really are. We're exploring the magical, incredibly sticky world of an ingredient called nuang, or as we call it in English, glutinous rice.
Yes, glutinous rice. And before we go further, let's set some ground rules. This deep dive is designed especially for you, our listener, who is, just starting out or mastering the English language.
Exactly. So we are going to keep our conversation clear, natural, and very accessible. We'll speak a bit slowly and we'll explain things as we go.
Right. You are going to hear some fantastic English vocabulary today.
Ah.
But instead of just giving you a boring dictionary definition, we are going to explore the science, the history, and the deep cultural meaning behind this food.
Yeah, that's the best way to learn. Because nuang isn't just a daily food, it's this fascinating scientific ingredient and a really deep symbol of Chinese culture. You'll pick up the language naturally as we chat.
I love that approach.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right into the physical ingredient itself, because before we even talk about cooking, I have a major issue with the English name.
Oh, what's the issue?
Well, we call it glutinous rice. And when I hear that word, my brain immediately thinks of gluten, like the protein found in wheat that makes bread
Oh.
chewy.
Oh, right. Yeah. The thing that causes stomach issues for a lot of people.
Exactly. So I'm thinking if I'm trying to eat a gluten-free diet, I should definitely avoid this rice, right?
That is a very logical assumption to make. I mean, the words sound almost identical, but the answer is actually no. Glutinous rice is 100% gluten free.
Wait, really? There's no gluten in it at all?
Absolutely zero gluten in it. It's totally safe for a gluten free diet.
And why in the world do we call it glutinous? I mean, that feels like a trick.
It does sound like a trick, I agree, but the confusion just comes from the history of the English language. The word glutinous shares an ancient root with the word glue.
Oh, like glue that you use to stick paper together.
Exactly. So when we describe a food as glutinous, we are not talking about wheat protein at all. We are simply saying that the food has a glue-like texture. It is extremely sticky.
Okay, that makes perfect sense now. It is glue-like rice.
Glutinous. Okay, so let's say I have a bowl of this raw, uncooked, sticky rice sitting right next to a bowl of regular raw rice. How can I tell the difference?
Well, you can actually see the difference immediately. If you look closely at a grain of regular everyday rice, the edges are a little bit clear, like light passes through it slightly.
Right, it's a bit translucent.
Yeah. But raw glutinous rice is entirely opaque.
Opaque. That is a fantastic vocabulary word for our listeners. Opaque. It really is. So when something is opaque, it means light cannot pass through it at all. You cannot see through it.
So, kind of like the difference between a glass window and a brick wall.
That's a perfect example. The window is clear, but the wall is completely opaque. So raw glutinous rice looks like a solid, chalky white curl.
A solid white pearl. Okay, so it looks completely opaque and it acts like glue. But as I was reading through our sources for this deep dive, I realized we need to ask why.
The science behind it, right?
Yeah, why is it so sticky? What is the actual science happening inside that little white grain?
Well, it all comes down to the architecture of the starch. Starch is the carbohydrate substance in plants that gives our bodies energy.
Right, starch is what gives us energy.
Exactly. But not all starch is built the same way. In regular rice, the starch molecules are shaped like long, straight lines. We call that amylose.
Okay, long straight lines.
Yeah. And when you cook regular rice, those straight lines just sort of lay next to each other. The grains become soft, but they stay separate.
Like pencils sitting in a box. They are next to each other, but they do not attach or stick.
Precisely. But glutinous rice contains almost none of that straight line starch. Instead, it is packed with a different kind of starch called amylopectin.
Amylopectin. That's a big word.
It is. And amylopectin is not shaped like a straight line at all. It is highly branched, like a complex tree with hundreds of tiny branches reaching out in every direction.
Oh, wow. So when you add hot water and cook the glutinous rice, what happens to all those tiny branches?
They tangle up. Because there are so many branches reaching out, the individual grains of rice actually reach out and grab onto the grains next to them. They interlock.
That's fascinating. I like to think of it like microscopic Velcro, or to use a friendlier image for our listeners, is like the grains of rice are giving each other a very tight hug.
A tight hug. I like that a lot.
Yeah, so with regular rice, the grains sit alone. But with glutinous rice, the starch acts like dozens of tiny arms, and the grains hug each other so tightly that it is very difficult to pull them apart.
And that hugging action is exactly what gives this ingredient its superpower in the kitchen. Because the grains hold on to each other like glue, the rice is perfect for molding.
Molding. Let's explore that concept for our English beginners. When we talk about molding something, we mean taking a soft substance and pressing it into a specific shape.
Yes, like if you give a child a piece of soft clay, they can mold it into a star or a square or a little animal.
Right. And you cannot do that with regular cooked rice. If you try to mold regular rice into a ball, the straight starches just do not hold together.
No, not at all. The grains will just fall apart and crumble onto your plate.
But with our sticky nuang, you can mold it into anything. Because of those branching starches, it holds whatever shape you press it into,
Exactly. You can roll it into perfect little spheres. You can press it flat into thick cakes, or you can even mold it into tall pyramids.
which is exactly why chefs love it. Because you can mold it into any shape. And because its flavor is quite mild on its own, it is an incredibly versatile ingredient.
Versatile, another great word, meaning it can adapt to many different situations. It has a lot of different uses.
Right. You can use it as a blank canvas for something very sweet, or you can use it as the foundation for something deeply savory.
So let's start with the sweet side, because there is one dish in our notes that just looks spectacular. It is a traditional Chinese dessert called Eight Treasure Rice.
Oh, eight treasure rice. It is a beautiful dish, and it relies entirely on that molding property we just talked about.
It does. To make Eight Treasure Rice, the chef takes the cooked, sticky nuag and molds it into a smooth half-sphere shape, kind of like a dome.
Right. And inside that dome, there's usually a hidden surprise, like sweet red bean paste.
Yeah, that sweet filling is delicious. But the outside is where the real magic happens. The chef takes brightly colored dried fruits, sweet dates, and nuts and presses them directly into the sticky surface of the rice.
And because the rice is like glue, the fruit stick perfectly to the outside. So when they flip it over onto a plate and pour a sweet, shiny syrup over the top, wow.
Yeah, the white opaque rice really contrasts with the bright red and green fruits. It literally looks like a royal crown covered in sparkling jewels.
It really is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
But, as much as I appreciate a beautiful dessert, I think the savory dishes are where this ingredient truly shows its power.
Savory. Let's make sure we define that. Savory meaning salty, earthy, or rich, basically the opposite of sweet.
Exactly. And the ultimate savory example from our sources is lo mai gai, which translates to sticky rice chicken.
Oh, this dish is phenomenal. I love it.
It's so good. So for lo mai gai, you take the sticky rice, you mix it with marinated chicken, dark mushrooms, and maybe some salty sausage.
Right, you get all those rich ingredients together.
Then you wrap all of those ingredients tightly inside a large green lotus leaf. Finally, you put the whole package into a bamboo steamer.
And this is where we see another incredible property of those branched starch molecules. As the hot steam penetrates the lotus leaf, the sticky rice acts like a flavor sponge.
A flavor sponge, so it absorbs everything around it.
Yes, it absorbs it. And to absorb means to soak something up, pulling liquid or flavor deep into itself.
Right, so as the chicken cooks, the rich, salty fats melt into the rice.
And at the same time, The rice absorbs the deep, earthy, almost tea-like aroma of the green lotus leaf wrapping. The rice takes all those complex flavors and just locks them inside.
That is the magic of the dish. Because in a typical meal, regular rice is just a side character. It is just there on the plate to help you eat the spicy meat.
Right, it's just plain rice.
But in lo mai gai, because the rice absorbs so much intense flavor, it becomes the star of the show.
Yeah,
You find yourself wanting to eat the rice even more than the chicken.
it is incredibly flavorful. But we also have to mention another savory application that highlights a completely different texture. We have to talk about SIBO.
Oh, siba, yes. These are pounded rice cakes.
Yeah, and the process of making SIBO is fascinating to watch. People take a giant batch of steaming hot, cooked glutinous rice and place it into a large stone bowl.
A huge stone bowl, and then what do?
Then, using heavy wooden mallets, they pound the rice. They hit it over and over again with a very fast rhythm.
So as they pound it, those hugging starch grains get crushed together until they completely lose their individual shape.
Exactly. The entire batch blends into one smooth, stretchy, continuous dough.
And once they have that smooth dough, they shave it into cakes and often pan fry them in oil.
Yeah.
This creates an unbelievable contrast in texture.
It really does. Because when you bite into pan-fried SIBA, the outside is wonderfully crispy and crunchy.
But the inside is incredibly chewy.
Chewy. Let's explain that word. When a food is chewy, it means it has an elastic texture. You really have to work your jaw and chew it several times before it breaks
All
down.
right, so it's crispy on the outside, chewy on the inside. Now, looking at all these dishes, the thick dough of the ceba, the dense, sticky rice stuffed with chicken fat, the sweet dome covered in syrup, I think we need to address something.
I know exactly what you were going to say.
Do you? Because I am reading this list and thinking, if I eat a massive bowl of pounded sticky starch mixed with meat, I am going to experience the world's greatest food coma.
Yes. It sounds so incredibly heavy.
Right. Isn't that a negative thing? Why would you want a food that makes you feel like you swallowed a brick?
You know, that is a very valid critique for our modern lifestyle. Today, if we sit at a computer for 8 hours, eating a dense brick of sticky rice might make us feel too sleepy.
Yeah, I'd need a nap immediately.
But historically, this heaviness was not a flaw. It was a very intentional feature. We describe foods like this as being highly substantial.
Substantial, that is a powerful word for our listeners to learn.
It is. If we call a meal substantial, we mean it has serious weight and physical presence.
Okay.
It is large, it is heavy, and it provides deep, long-lasting energy.
Okay, so how does that connect to history?
Well, you have to remember the historical context of ancient China. Millions of people were agricultural workers. They were farmers doing intense manual labor in the fields.
Working from before the sun came up until long after it went down.
Exactly. So if a farmer eats a light, delicate bowl of soup and some vegetables, they are going to burn those calories in an hour.
Right, their stomach will be completely empty while they are still trying to plow the field.
Yes, they needed a substantial meal. They needed that dense, heavy, slow digesting amylopectin starch.
Because the grains hug each other so tightly, it takes the human stomach a long time to break them down.
Precisely. This provided the farmers with a steady, slow release of energy that would keep them fueled all day long without needing to stop for another meal.
That makes perfect sense. The physical heaviness of the food matched the physical heaviness of their daily labor.
But you know, this brings us to the most fascinating transition in our deep dive today.
Okay.
How does a heavy, everyday peasant food used for field labor become the shining star of high-status cultural festivals?
That is the big question. We have explored the physical stickiness of the rice and the physical fullness it brings to the stomach. But to understand its true place in Chinese culture, we have to look at the emotional fullness it represents.
Right. In Chinese culture, food is never just calories. It is a language of symbols. And the way those rice grains physically hug each other perfectly mirrors its cultural meaning.
It is a symbol of cohesion,
Cohesion. This is arguably the most important English concept for you, our listener, to take away today. Let's break that down.
Okay, so cohesion is the act of sticking together to form a united whole. When different separate parts come together and hold on tightly to each other, they have cohesion.
Yes, you might hear people talk about team cohesion at work, meaning the employees support each other, or social cohesion in a city, meaning the neighbors look out for one another.
So just like the individual grains of Nuam use their starchy branches to stick together and form one solid, unbreakable cake, human beings can stick together to form a solid, unbreakable group.
Exactly. Glutinous rice is the ultimate edible metaphor for cohesion and togetherness, and that is why it takes center stage during almost every major family festival in China.
Our sources give some beautiful examples of this, like during the Lantern Festival, families gather to eat a dish called tangyuan.
Tangwin. Those are the soft, sweet, spherical dumplings made from sticky rice flour, right? Usually served floating in a hot, sweet broth.
Yes, exactly. And the symbolism there is very elegant. The sticky texture represents the family bond,
Mhm.
and the perfect, unbroken round shape of the dumpling represents the family circle being whole and complete.
That's lovely. But I think the most dramatic example of cohesion has to be the Dragon Boat Festival. This is where Nuong really takes on a profound meaning.
Oh, definitely. During this festival, everyone eats zongzi.
Zongzi are legendary. They are those iconic pyramid-shaped dumplings. The sticky rice is stuffed with either sweet or savory fillings, wrapped tightly in large bamboo leaves, and then bound up securely with string.
Right, usually cotton string or plant fibers. Now, I know there's a famous historical story tied to this specific food. To really understand the cultural depth of the zongzi, we have to look back thousands of years.
Yes, the tradition is deeply connected to the legend of Kuo Yuan. He was a famous, highly patriotic poet and government minister in ancient China.
And what happened to him?
Well, according to the legend, when his kingdom was conquered by an enemy state, Kuo Yuan was so overcome with grief and despair that he drowned himself in the Milu River.
Oh, wow. It is a tragic story. But how does that lead to sticky rice pyramids?
Well, the local villagers loved Kuo Yuan. When they realized what he had done, they raced out onto the river in their boats, which, by the way, is the origin of the dragon boat races.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were beating drums and splashing the water to scare away the fish and the water dragons, but they also needed a way to protect his body.
So they threw food into the water.
Exactly. They threw lumps of sticky rice into the river. The idea was that the fish would eat the heavy filling rice instead of consuming the beloved poet's body.
That is incredible.
It is. And over centuries, this act of throwing rice into the river evolved into the tradition of wrapping the sticky rice in leaves and eating zongzi to honor his loyalty and spirit.
That adds so much weight to the dish. But beyond just honoring the poet, the physical construction of the zongzi carries that incredible message of cohesion we talked about earlier. Let's analyze how it is built.
Okay, let's do it.
So you start with many, many separate grains of rice.
Right. Then you wrap them inside the tough bamboo leaf.
And then, this is the crucial part, you tie a string tightly around the outside, binding everything together under pressure. Finally, you drop it into boiling water for hours.
And if you think about that symbolism, it's amazing. The separate grains represent individual family members,
They are gathered together, bound tightly by the leaf and the string.
which represents the family bond. Then they are subjected to intense boiling heat, which represents the hardships and struggles of life.
But because of the sticky amylopectin starch and because of the tight wrapping, they do not fall apart in the boiling water. They survive the heat.
And when you finally cut the string and open the leaf, the rice has fused into one single unified pyramid.
It is a breathtaking metaphor. Eating zongzi is a symbolic celebration of a family reunion.
It really is. It is a reminder that life can be very difficult. You will face boiling water. But if you maintain your cohesion, if you stick together, hug each other tightly, and support one another, you will survive the pressure and remain whole.
Wow. You will survive the pressure and remain whole. That is so much more than just a tasty lunch. It is a philosophy wrapped in a bamboo leaf.
It truly is.
And, this is why we love doing these deep dives. Learning a new language is not just about memorizing a dictionary. It is about understanding the culture, the history, and the human stories that breathe life into those words.
Absolutely. When you understand the culture, the English vocabulary becomes unforgettable.
Speaking of vocabulary, let's do a seamless recap of the key English words we explored today, just to help you, our listener, lock them into your memory.
Sounds good. I will start. Our first big concept was glutinous. Remember, it has absolutely no gluten. It simply shares a root with the word glue, meaning it is incredibly sticky.
Next, we looked at the visual difference. Raw, sticky rice is opaque. Just like a brick wall, light cannot pass through it. It is a solid, chalky white color.
Then we explored how chefs use it. Because the starch branches hug each other, the rice is perfect for molding. You can press it and shape it into domes, cakes, or pyramids, and it holds its form beautifully.
We also talked about how heavy the food is. For an ancient farmer needing all-day energy, a thick rice cake was a substantial meal. It is large, physically heavy, and provides long-lasting fuel.
And finally, we discovered the deep cultural meaning cohesion. This is the act of sticking together to form a united whole, just like a family supporting each other through hard times.
Those are 5 powerful words to add to your English toolkit. As we wrap up our deep dive today, I want to leave you, our listener, with a slightly philosophical question.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Yeah, this is directly inspired by our source material, and it's something fun to think about as you go about your day.
So think about everything we discussed regarding starch, independence, and cohesion. If you were a grain of rice, which would you rather be?
Would you rather be a grain of regular, straight-lined rice cooking up, fluffy, independent, and standing completely alone in your bowl?
Or would you rather be a sticky nuang grain, perhaps a bit messy, but forever connected, tangling your branches and hugging the people around you?
It is a beautiful thought to chew on while you practice your new vocabulary. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey today.
Yes, keep learning, keep exploring the stories behind the food, and keep asking great questions.
Stay sticky and keep practicing your English. We will see you on the next deep dive.